I want you to hit me as hard as you can.
I'm interested in anything weird. You know, freaky, bizarre.
Over the course of his esteemed career, John Carpenter has been named in conjunction with the Academy Awards precisely 2 times. The first was early in his career when he served as the co-writer, editor, and composer for the short film The Resurrection of Broncho Billy, which won the 1970 Oscar for Best Live-Action Short Film. The second was when Jeff Bridges was nominated for Best Actor in 1984's Starman.
He's terrific.
For a filmmaker who was dealt exclusively in horror and variants of science fiction, Starman was a distinct foray into familiar genres mixed with romance that many did not associate with John Carpenter. While it did result in a brief television series continuation in 1986, the original film has become a cult classic despite being one of Carpenter's lesser-known endeavors. Starman began its long journey to the screen in the late 1970s when it was purchased by Columbia Pictures at the request of Michael Douglas.
Greed, for lack of a better word, is good.
At the same time, the studio was entertaining optioning a project called Night Skies, which was from Steven Spielberg. Night Skies was envisioned as a follow-up to Close Encounters of the Third Kind, but Spielberg had no desire to make a sequel to that film, having seen what Universal did with their Jaws sequel. The original script for Starman was written by Bruce A. Evans and Reynold Gideon. It was rewritten by Dean Reisner, best known for Clint Eastwood's Play Misty for Me and Dirty Harry. Reisner boarded the project just as original director Mike Riddell left the project. Riddell was the director of the Oscar-winning film On Golden Pond, and he departed due to creative differences with Michael Douglas.
Greed is right.
Reisner was part of 7 rewrites of Starman, which saw half a dozen directors join and depart the project. Ultimately, Reisner received no credit for the film, as the Writers Guild of America determined that his contributions amounted to less than 50% of the final script. Reisner was succeeded by script doctors including Edward Zwick and Diane Thomas, as Columbia continued to support the project. As Starman began to look more like the mature hit they were hoping for, Columbia decided to end development on Night Skies. Feeling the film was too family-friendly and Disney-like in nature, the studio allowed Steven Spielberg to make the film that he wanted elsewhere. While Night Skies never really came to fruition, it did turn into 2 films you're perhaps familiar with, Poltergeist and E.T. the Extraterrestrial. Thank you for watching JoBlo videos. If you enjoy our shows, please subscribe to our channel right now, like this video, and click on the bell so you'll be notified each time a new video goes up. Now, back to the show. Dean Reisner, upon reflecting on Columbia's business decision, simply said, "Well, it goes to show you how wrong you can be in this business." With E.T. becoming the highest-grossing film of all time, Columbia became worried that Starman shared too many plot similarities with that film. At the time, Reisner was working on the second draft of the screenplay when the carousel of filmmakers began. First, Flashdance and 9.5 Weeks director Adrian Lyne came on, and he was followed by John Badham. Badham left the project to direct War Games after agreeing that Starman and E.T. were just too similar. The next filmmaker was Tony Scott, who was followed by Peter Hyams, before ultimately Carpenter landed the gig. Each of the filmmakers tried to distinguish the film in their own way. Tony Scott wanted to stylize the film and actually cast Broadway actor Philip Anglin in the title role, while Peter Hyams wanted to make a more straightforward sci-fi movie. Michael Douglas was very supportive of John Carpenter leading the project and said at the time it was a chance for the filmmaker to surprise audience with a tale different than what he had made before. Carpenter at the time was mostly known for genre films like Christine, The Thing, Escape from New York, The Fog, and Halloween, and he adopted for an approach that would be low on special effects and emphasize the road trip elements of the tale. Carpenter was also, it bears mentioning, wallowing in the poor box office results for The Thing and set out to make a movie that was the complete opposite of that film.
You find love.
Carpenter took this on as an opportunity to showcase the natural beauty of the United States. With so many films at the time focusing on what was wrong with the US, Carpenter wanted to showcase the good side of America, its beauty, and the potential of its people.
You are a strange species, not like any other.
Carpenter's first choice for the title role was Tom Cruise. He met with Cruise about the part, but the timing just wasn't right, as Cruise had already committed to Ridley Scott's Legend. While Kevin Bacon briefly had the role, Jeff Bridges was then considered, as he was already looked at for the lead roles in previous John Carpenter films, The Thing and Escape from New York. Both of those parts went to Kurt Russell. Jeff Bridges had also recently starred in Columbia's Against All Odds, which was fairly successful, and 2 years prior had headlined Disney's science fiction classic Tron. For this role, Bridges studied ornithology to emulate the alien behavior seen in the film, including jerky head movements and other mannerisms. He found that if an alien were to inhabit a human body, they would act with more primitive instincts, and he acts kind of like a bird in this movie. Karen Allen was cast in the secondary lead. Best known at the time for Raiders of the Lost Ark, she had fond memories of the movie and of Carpenter, and viewed the project as a study in imagination and really enjoyed working with Carpenter on the film. The cast also included the Oscar-nominated Richard J. Kell, who was best known at the time for his tenure as an actor in westerns, having appeared in 8 films with John Wayne. Coincidentally, Jeff Bridges would go on to get an Oscar nomination for True Grit, a remake of a John Wayne classic. The film also features Charles Martin Smith as Mark Sherman, as well as 2 genre stalwarts, Ted White and MC Gainey, in minor roles. While Gainey has had a long tenure as a character actor, Ted White played Jason Voorhees in Friday the 13th, The Final Chapter, which was also released in 1984. Carpenter then focused on accentuating the romance between the 2 leads, looking to echo classic movies about star-crossed lovers like 1945's Brief Encounter. As production made use of physical locations around the country, there were logistical challenges including lighting, especially during the climatic crater sequence. Starman employed 6 cinematographers and camera operators during that sequence, which also required 16 Chinook helicopters. Carpenter, who used some states to stand in for others during production, stated that they had to deal with everything from bad weather to fluctuating temperatures all throughout production. Released 2 years after E.T., Starman would go on to gross a very disappointing $28.7 million at the box office, against a budget of $24 million, echoing the Thing's lackluster $19.6 million box office against its $50 million budget.
Define shit.
Don't say that. That's a nice word.
The critics were favorable, but the movie was ultimately a financial failure. In the years since, though, it has grown in popularity and renown, including a nomination for the AFI's list of most romantic movies and best science fiction movies. And of course, Jeff Bridges managed to score an Oscar nomination off this. Starman deals with a concept that could have easily become very silly, but like E.T., deeply roots itself in a realistic relationship between a human and an alien that transcends genre conventions. Inspired by the Voyager 2 spacecraft launched in 1977, the movie has some eerie parallels to the Terminator. In the Wisconsin parts of the movie, the Starman begins as a ball of energy that ventures to the home of Jenny Hayden, who recently suffered the loss of her husband Scott.
You're not Scott.
The alien replicates his body before sending a message to his home planet that the Earth is hostile. With 3 days to rendezvous, Starman and Jenny begin their journey to Arizona. Along the way, the movie toys with humor as we see Starman learn how to use money and how to drive a car, and kudos to Karen Allen for showcasing the full range of emotion that anyone would experience when seeing their deceased spouse brought back to life.
I look like Scott, so you do not be a little bit jumpy.
The special effects are fairly seamless and hold up even 4 decades later, but what works best in the movie are the intimate moments, including the love scene between Jenny and Starman. For a film that's rated PG, there's a remarkable amount of maturity on display here, but it never borders on inappropriate. Had the movie been released today, probably would be a PG-13, but not for anything frightening or even adult in nature. This is a sweet movie with great themes, musically and otherwise, that also has a nice singing duet between Jeff Bridges and Karen Allen that is truncated in the finished film, but does a nice job evoking the fact that, Karen Allen and her husband were deeply in love, and it's kind of bittersweet. It's also one of the few films in which John Carpenter did not serve as his own composer. Instead, Jack Nitzsche composed the score, whose title theme may be one of the best tracks you don't realize you already love. Sweeping and appropriately epic, the score has been sampled in popular songs like Dan Black Symphonies and its remix featuring Kid Cudi. In the years since Starman premiered, its fan base has grown. In 1986, the television series Starman premiered and lasted for a full season at ABC. Set 15 years after the film, the show starred Robert Hayes as the deceased Paul Forrester, resurrected by an alien entity from the film. Of course, Robert Hayes is best known for Airplane. The series featured the return of the character of George Fox, played by Michael Cavanaugh, taking over from Richard J. Kell. While critics were mainly negative to the series, it still lasted for 22 episodes. As of 2016, Free Guy and the Adam Project director Sean Levy has been attached to a remake written by Arash Amel, with Michael Douglas on board as producer.
Greed works.
It is unknown if Jeff Bridges would be involved in any way, but one, would hope that maybe we'd see him return as he did for Tron Legacy. John Carpenter is all but retired from directing, but ventured outside of his genre comfort zone one more time in 1992's comedy Memoirs of an Invisible Man. While that film doesn't nearly have the heart of Starman, it does indeed show that Carpenter was a lot more than a horror director. Starman is the closest Carpenter has ever gotten to Steven Spielberg's Amblin sensibility, and it's every bit as entertaining as E.T. in its own way. This is definitely an underrated gem that you've got to see. And if you like this kind of program, make sure to click on the bell to receive notifications for all of our latest videos. We're an independent company, and we appreciate all of your support.